It was a quiet summer evening in Fairfield, Ohio, just weeks before Caitlyn Markham, a 21-year-old art student, was due to celebrate her 22nd birthday and graduate from the Art Institute of Ohio, Cincinnati. Neighbors were winding down after a long weekend, and the lights of the Sacred Heart Festival flickered in the distance. Then, shortly before 8 p.m. on August 14, 2011, local police received a call that would launch a search stretching far beyond the city limits. The voice on the other end belonged to John Carter, Caitlyn's fiancé. His tone was tense, urgent, and the dispatcher could tell something was very wrong.
Fairfield 911, where's your emergency?
Hi, my name is John Carter. I know that you're not supposed to report a missing person before 24 hours, but my fiance is missing. I can't find her anywhere.
Where did you see her last?
I saw her at like 12 o'clock last night. She stays in a house by herself, I'm really nervous. I've been trying to get a hold of her, and I decided to go by her house to see if she was okay. And her car was still there. She would be at work right now with her car, which is why I'm really freaking out.
What's her name?
Katelyn Helene Markham.
Such a disappearance was out of character for Caitlyn, which is why it caused so much concern. Caitlyn was known for her artistic talent and vibrant personality. August 16, 1990, marked a deeply meaningful day for Dave Markham and his wife in Hamilton County, Ohio. Through a private adoption arranged with someone they knew personally, they welcomed Katelyn Helene Markham into their lives. She had been with them from the very beginning, brought home as an infant, and raised in a family that never treated her adoption as a secret. From childhood onwards, Caitlyn always knew her story, one rooted in honesty, trust, and love. Years later, Caitlyn became an older sister when the Markhams welcomed another daughter, Allie, further strengthening their family bond. Growing up, Caitlyn displayed natural creativity and an open, gentle spirit. After graduating from Fairfield High School, she went on to study graphic arts at the Art Institute of Ohio in Cincinnati, determined to turn her artistic talent into a career. Warm, approachable, and easy to like, Caitlyn had a way of making people feel at ease. Her parents and sister adored her. She was open to new experiences and ideas. She was constantly drawing or taking photographs. Creativity was a natural part of who she was. Her high school art teacher was especially fond of her and believed she had exceptional talent. When Caitlyn was nearly 17, she met John Carter, who was a year older. Both shared a love of art. Friends described them as a very well-matched couple who complemented each other perfectly. Some even said they seemed almost ideally suited. Caitlyn and John had been together for several years, and by 2011 they had been engaged for about a year, looking forward to a future together and even planning a move to Colorado once she had finished college. Caitlyn was said to be very excited about the move. At the time of her disappearance, Caitlyn lived independently in a townhouse on Dorsia Drive in Fairfield, Ohio, a quiet suburb north of Cincinnati. She wasn't living with her fiancé, but he kept a key to her place and visited often. John himself listed an address in Hamilton, Ohio, not far from Caitlyn's home, both communities part of the greater Cincinnati area. While studying graphic arts at the Art Institute of Ohio in Cincinnati, Caitlyn supported herself with 2 jobs. She worked at the campus bookstore, helping fellow students with supplies and materials, and also had a job at David's Bridal, a bridal shop near the Tri-County Mall. John worked as a delivery driver for Papa John's Pizza in the Fairfield area. John also called Caitlyn's father to inform him that she had gone missing. He was very worried. Caitlyn should have been at work, yet her car was still parked outside the house. When police arrived at her home, they found nothing suspicious to suggest a crime. There were no signs of forced entry, no evidence of a struggle, and no blood inside. Upstairs in her bedroom, her belongings were still there: her ID, credit cards, cash, purse, and wallet. None of her clothing was missing. The only item gone was her mobile phone. For the police, this was a sign that something was wrong. If Caitlyn had left voluntarily, she would likely have taken at least her money or cards. John noticed that a festival was taking place nearby and suspected that someone attending it could be connected to her disappearance. The police decided to question the festival vendors to see if anyone had noticed anything suspicious. Officers combed the area, checking every street and alley in the quiet Fairfield neighborhood. Neighbors were questioned individually, asked if they had seen anything unusual or noticed anyone around Caitlyn's home that day. Meanwhile, her family and friends sprang into action. Her parents and sister retraced her usual routes, called her phone repeatedly, and contacted everyone they knew, desperate for any sign of her. Flyers went up around Fairfield, Hamilton, and surrounding towns, and the local news began broadcasting alerts, urging anyone with information to come forward. Reports of possible sightings came in, and police followed each lead, from local shops to the Sacred Heart Festival, where Caitlyn had been seen enjoying the summer evening. Volunteers joined in, searching parks, wooded areas and roads, hoping to find even the smallest clue. Every passing hour added to the tension, and the search stretched into the night, leaving the community gripped with worry and fear for Caitlyn's safety. The case also reached the media, prompting widespread public interest in finding Caitlyn. Meanwhile, people online speculated about what might have happened. Perhaps she had gone to Colorado on her own, but her family and friends knew she would never have done something like that without informing those closest to her, especially as she was due to finish college in just 3 weeks. Police had to focus on those closest to the missing woman. The last people confirmed by police to have seen Caitlyn alive were her fiancé, John Carter, who reported seeing her at her Fairfield townhouse on the night of the 13th of August 2011, and Brad von Bargen, a friend of John's known to be in his circle that evening. The following day, John made the 911 call when Caitlyn could not be found. Brad was summoned for questioning to recount his last encounter with Caitlyn.
So basically, I just want to start from the very beginning.
John is like outside, like he just opened the door and is like kind of just standing right there at the doorway. It's like I go up, hey man, what's going on? John just kind of plops down on the love seat, and Caitlyn is sitting, which she hasn't even moved at this point. She hasn't even said hi to me. That computer was on her lap. She did not move from that spot, which again was just weird.
So what time do you think you left?
I believe I left at around 10:45-ish.
Brad later spoke privately with police and a private investigator, saying that he had been at Caitlyn's townhouse that night, left at 10:45 p.m. and returned home around 1 a.m. During questioning, he underwent a voice stress test, a technique used to detect stress or possible deception in a person's voice by measuring tiny changes in pitch and tone. While the test showed signs of stress, investigators noted that stress could come from fear or anxiety, not just lying, and ultimately found his account consistent with other evidence. Investigators also questioned John, asking about his relationship with Caitlyn. He said it was very good. He explained that he had visited her with Brad. Brad had left first, and he stayed a little longer. He left around midnight and went to a friend's house until 1:30 a.m. or 2 a.m., before returning to his mother's house, where he lived, watching television for the next 3 or 4 hours. He went to bed after 4 a.m. On 14th August, he repeatedly tried to contact his fiancée but was unsuccessful. Concerned, he went to her house, saw her car, and, believing something was wrong, called 911. John Carter also underwent a voice stress test during questioning. Like with Brad von Bargen, the test aimed to detect stress or possible deception in his voice. The detective believed John was withholding information or being untruthful. However, John insisted this was not the case and that he had no involvement in Caitlyn's disappearance. He claimed he was terrified for her safety and only wanted her to be found safe and well. Many friends believed John, feeling the couple was harmonious and he would have no reason to harm her. Police searched John's mother's home, where he lived, but found nothing. John gave a television interview stating that he would not respond to ridiculous accusations because he was innocent.
You guys have an argument, never hit each other, touched each other in any way?
I've never hit her.
Okay.
We've been together for 6 years. We've been engaged it'll be a year on our birthday. We rarely fought. Brad came over. We hung out for a little bit. We talked about Colorado and all that stuff. Then he left, and I hung out with her for a little bit after he left. And then I left at around 11:30
p.m.
Yes.
Okay.
And then I went straight to a friend's house.
So you leave Caitlyn's house, you go to your friend's house. How long were you there?
I was there till... It was like 1:30, 2 o'clock. And then I went to my house and just sat in my house and I watched TV.
Okay.
In the early months of the investigation into Caitlyn Markham's disappearance, police followed every lead, including questioning people who lived or worked near her Fairfield townhouse. In July 2012, 11 months after Caitlyn went missing, a new lead emerged. One of the individuals questioned was Gurpreet Kang, a 26-year-old man who worked at a gas station close to Caitlyn's neighbourhood and also lived nearby. Due to his proximity, authorities felt it was necessary to rule him out in their investigation. In June 2012, Kang had been arrested in Oxford, Ohio, on an unrelated sexual battery charge, which briefly drew additional attention to him. Fairfield detectives questioned him about Caitlyn's disappearance, but after reviewing his statements and background, they concluded that his connection to the case was tenuous at best. Kang had no involvement in her disappearance, and police publicly clarified that he was not a suspect, emphasizing that the only charges against him were in the separate Oxford case. Though initially scrutinized because of where he lived and worked, Kang was quickly cleared, allowing investigators to focus on more credible leads and the timeline of events surrounding the night Caitlyn went missing. For months, Caitlyn Markham's family and law enforcement scoured the neighborhoods and wooded areas of Butler and Hamilton counties, searching for any trace of her, but their efforts came up empty. The trail went cold, leaving questions and fear lingering in the community. Then, on 7 April 2013, over a year and a half after her disappearance, a couple collecting aluminium cans in a remote section of Big Cedar Creek in Cedar Grove, southeastern Indiana, discovered human remains hidden among the trees. Some were in a plastic bag, mixed with other debris. The man opened the bag and saw a human skull. He immediately called 911. By that point, only bones remained. Those remains were later identified as Caitlyn's. Investigators determined that she had been the victim of a homicide, though the precise cause of death could not be established due to the extensive decomposition of the body. A forensic anthropology report later revealed that her remains had not originally been left at the site where they were found, but had been moved there sometime after her death. The forensic anthropology and autopsy reports showed that Caitlyn's left wrist had 3 or 4 cut marks caused by sharp force trauma, meaning the wounds were inflicted by something with a blade-like edge. The specific instrument could not be identified, but the nature of the marks suggested they were caused by a sharp tool rather than natural damage. The report noted that these marks may have been made during dismemberment rather than solely as defensive wounds, although definitive interpretation was difficult due to the advanced decomposition. Her family was informed. Although they had dreamed of Caitlyn being found safe and well, they knew the chances were slim. In a way, they felt some relief that she had finally been found, as it brought an end to the endless uncertainty and waiting for a return that would never come. At least now they knew the truth, and they had to face it. The media requested comment from John Carter, but he responded only via text, saying he had previously engaged with the press solely to help find his fiancé. Now that she had been located, he would make no further comment. He only wished to grieve his loss in private. When Caitlyn Markham's remains were recovered in April 2013, they were found in a remote, wooded area off Big Cedar Road in Cedar Grove, Indiana, roughly 30 miles west of her Fairfield home. Investigators later noted that this location lay along a route John Carter would have travelled from his Fairfield residence toward a property his father owned on Kokomo Hill Road, near Laurel, Indiana. Police observed that the road where her body was dumped was not random, but lay on the most direct route between Carter's home and his father's farm, which he and Caitlyn had visited before. Her remains were wrapped in dark plastic construction and landscaping sheeting, and investigators believed the material came from Carter's former home or a friend's, reinforcing the theory that someone familiar with the area had chosen the specific dump site. No DNA was found at the scene, yet Indiana police still invited John for questioning. He could not explain how Caitlyn's body had ended up at that location.
Have you been over to where she was found?
No, I don't want to go there. I don't want to go to that place and be like, oh, this is where she died.
Do you know where... Are you familiar with the area where they found her?
My dad's property is in Laurel on Kokomo Road.
We're trying to find out who murdered Caitlyn.
I mean, like, I know that I've taken multiple lie detector tests, and I know that I've been accused of being dishonest. I can tell you this. Somebody did something. Somebody did something, and they're not saying something.
What would you want to happen to somebody that did that to her?
I want that person to burn in hell.
Caitlyn Markham was commemorated during a large memorial and funeral service at Fairfield Senior High School, a place familiar to many who had watched her grow up. Family, friends, classmates, and members of the community gathered to honor her life, wearing bright colors at her family's request, a reflection of Caitlyn's creativity and the light she had brought into the lives of others. Among those in attendance was John Carter, her former fiancé. He stood before the crowd and spoke about the future they had once planned together, a wedding, a honeymoon, and a life growing old side by side. At the time, his words were received as those of a grieving partner, spoken during a moment when answers were still painfully out of reach, and the truth about what had happened to Caitlyn remained unknown. Police continued to suspect John. He was invited to take a polygraph test, which he failed. Despite this, he continued to maintain his innocence, insisting he had done nothing to Caitlyn. Unfortunately, no evidence directly linked him to her murder, so he was not arrested. For years after Caitlyn Markham's remains were discovered, the case remained largely dormant, with few new leads and no arrests. Then, around 2020, Paul Newton, a cold case investigator with the Butler County Prosecutor's Office, began taking a fresh look at the evidence. Working alongside Assistant Prosecutor Brad Burris, Newton methodically reopened the investigation, reviewing old reports, re-examining timelines, and re-interviewing dozens of people connected to Caitlyn and John Carter. Over the next several years, the renewed effort slowly uncovered inconsistencies and details that had previously gone unnoticed. What had once seemed like a case without answers began to take shape, ultimately leading to a major break in March 2023, when John Carter was indicted, more than a decade after Caitlyn disappeared. Re-interviewing friends of the couple revealed that Caitlyn had wanted to break up with John. She had grown tired of his addiction to adult films, use of illicit substances, and coercion into intimate acts she did not consent to. His behavior had caused her to fall out of love, and she no longer saw a future with him. But John did not want to let her go. It also emerged that his alibi did not entirely add up. According to investigators, John Carter left Caitlyn's Fairfield townhouse in the early hours of the 14th of August 2011 at around 2 a.m. This timing became significant because it narrowed the window in which Caitlyn vanished. Carter told police that after leaving her home, he drove away alone. Later, witnesses reported seeing a vehicle similar to Carter's in the area during the early morning hours, a detail that drew investigators' attention. Prosecutors noted that these sightings were consistent with the timeline Carter himself provided, placing him on the road at a critical time. While no witness could directly place Caitlyn in the car, the observations supported the theory that Carter was mobile during the narrow window after she was last seen alive. Investigators also focused on the route he would have taken, which aligned with roads leading out of Ohio towards southeastern Indiana, the same general corridor where Caitlyn's remains were later discovered. Though circumstantial, prosecutors argued that the timing of Carter's departure, combined with witness observations of a vehicle and his access to that route, formed an important part of the case against him. Police executed a new search warrant on the home owned by John Carter's mother in February 2023, nearly 12 years after Caitlyn Markham disappeared. Investigators believed that Carter had lived at that address at the time of her disappearance and that evidence related to the case, including items similar to the material Caitlyn's body was wrapped in, might still be there. As part of that search, authorities seized dozens of items, including a roll of landscaping material from a shed on the property that prosecutors later suggested could match the wrapping used on Caitlyn's remains. They also collected notes, journals, writings, and drawings believed to be connected to the investigation during the execution of the warrant at the property. John's writings were very disturbing. To quote a few, "Deep down, I love her. You want to kill her, but I love her. She must die. I can't kill her. Yes, you can. No. Yes. How do you talk me into all these things? I am just that good." Another was written on the door of his bedroom. "I slit your wrist with a key to your heart," a line prosecutors highlighted in court in connection with evidence of sharp trauma found on Caitlyn's wrist. Another journal entry quoted in court described the imagined disposal of a body. "I know I will bury the body in the backyard. No, I'll bury it under the trailer and wait until the grass grows over it and leave before anyone reports it missing. Yes, that's a great idea." These writings were not dated, but were found in a binder bearing Carter's name, and were used by prosecutors to suggest a pattern of troubling thoughts and inner conflict. Numerous notes confirmed that there was a darkness in John that no one knew about. On 22nd March 2023, John was arrested at work. As the scheduled murder trial approached in mid-2024, prosecutors maintained their belief that Carter was responsible for Caitlyn's death, citing years of investigation and circumstantial evidence. However, in June 2024, just before the case went before a jury, Carter accepted a plea deal with the state. Instead of facing 2 counts of murder, he pleaded guilty to a single count of involuntary manslaughter, acknowledging that he caused her death during the commission of a misdemeanor assault. In July 2024, a Butler County judge sentenced Carter to the maximum prison term allowed under that plea, 3 years in prison. During the sentencing hearing, prosecutors argued he had shown little genuine remorse and had offered no explanation for what happened to Caitlyn, even after her remains were discovered in 2013. Judge Daniel Horphy ordered Carter into custody immediately after sentencing and credited him for a brief period already spent in jail. In court, Dave Markham, Caitlyn's father, addressed the judge, calling for the maximum sentence allowed under Ohio law. At the same time, he acknowledged that no legal outcome could ever truly compensate for the loss of his daughter. Even after the plea deal and sentencing finally assigned legal responsibility, the Markham family emphasized that a sense of real closure remained out of reach. In the wake of Caitlyn Markham's tragic death, her father, Dave Markham, has taken the lead in proposing and pushing for Caitlyn's law, a change to Ohio law aimed at preventing future cases like hers. Currently, crimes involving concealing a death or moving a body have a statute of limitations, meaning prosecutors cannot bring certain charges if too much time passes. Because Caitlyn's remains were hidden for nearly 2 years, some potential charges against her killer were never possible. The proposed law, House Bill 459, would make it a distinct offence to move or hide human remains to conceal a crime. And importantly, it would have no statute of limitations, allowing justice to be pursued regardless of how much time has passed. Dave Markham has emphasised that this change is crucial to ensure that future families do not face the same frustration and loss of accountability. Rest in peace, Caitlyn Markham. Your life, taken far too soon, reminds us how precious time with the people we love really is. Sometimes, even after years together, we do not truly know those closest to us. Your story shows the hidden dangers that can exist in relationships and the need to stay careful and aware. May your memory live on, and your light never fade. Thank you for staying with me through this story until the very end. If I don't get the chance to share anything before the holidays, I want to take this moment to wish you all a very Merry Christmas.